man, got the tractor beam out of commission, or this is going to be a real short trip. Okay, hit it!
Hey there, collectors. Welcome to Product Spotlight, a show where we talk about exciting new Star Wars collectibles. Today we are joined by Tom Spina, owner of Regal Robot, makers of some of the most accurate Star Wars prop replicas available on the market today. And we are going to talk about an amazing new set. And you know how much I love sets. Prop replicas. So welcome, Tom. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. And for that great intro.
It's amazing, right? That's why he does it, because I would F it up. He did it.
I'm still bowled over by the music. I was waiting for like "In a World."
Yeah. We can do that, Tom.
So dramatic. Like that's a heavy duty, little music lead in right there.
This isn't your normal show, Tom.
We gotta deliver, is what I'm saying.
This is big time. This is big time.
Yeah,
I'm feeling the pressure.
I like that in a world.
Well, we're excited for everyone joining us in the chat. Just know that as we talk throughout this whole thing, please leave questions, comments, anything that we might be able to bring up during the show. If you have specific questions for Tom or for any of us, just let us know, and we'll try to get to those. We're not going to be able to get to all of them, but we've been looking forward to this for a while. Tom, it's been what you guys keep destroying everything that you come out with. It's amazing. The Rancor was incredible. The Rancor was unbelievable.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Very well received by everybody, and we're just super excited for what's coming. So
thank you. Thank you. They just finished about a week and a half ago. They finished paint on the second wave of the Rancors going into people's homes. Those had to wait about a week for the clear coat to harden up, and then those have been getting packed up over the last week and shipped out 5 or 6 a day. One thing that I think people might overlook, and if you've gotten one, you know how packed they were in the double box and all of that. Mm-hmm. But there's usually like 1, maybe 2 people working on packing these things. So, when you've got a room full of 24 of these things, and all of a sudden you've now built 24, 26-inch cube boxes. Those are massive, and they fill the whole space. And then just one by one, you're carefully putting this thing in, and it's not something coming off of some kind of assembly line. This is a person, Christine, at the shop, hand wrapping each one, putting the bubble wrap on, making sure the hand is packed, putting the foam in, and hot gluing the foam in by hand in every box to make sure that it's hitting them in the belly in the one spot, and protecting the back in the other. So a lot of love and care goes into these.
It was really well packed when I got it, and it worked out. I mean, Jason, you still think I got the best one out of anyone, which is fantastic.
It could just be the way you photograph and the lighting, but the details
probably is.
I gotta say, I feel that. I mean, Mr. Number One up here. I feel like I'm really proud of the consistency the team's been doing in terms of the paint work and the finish work. There's so many layers that go on this. They have a checklist that stays with the Rancor through the process, and again. This is not a factory. This is like 4, maybe 5 people finishing these things. Right. So it's very consistent in terms of the exact hands doing each step, as well as the QC on it, which is we have a real tight lid on. We're only doing 24 at a time. That gives a sense of what you're really looking at on these. So the people who got through. Like number 44, 45 or so, those are either shipped or shipping in the next few days. And then the next wave of 24 is actually coming into the studio in about 4 or 5 days. And then that'll be about a 2-week process, turning those around. And then a week for clear coat. And then those go off. And then the next ones.
Crazy.
So, Tom, when I got it and I had it all set up in the basement, called the wife down to take a look at it for the first time. She comes over, and the first thing that she sees is the spit. the drool, because she's like, oh, really? Oh, her eye went right to that.
That's what we love to hear.
Yeah,
that's what we love to hear. My wife was grossed out. Perfect.
Yeah.
But did she get did she see the certificate we included that said, "Congratulations on this free prop you won"?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
Number one
raffles, right?
The number one
Yeah,
raffle.
yeah. People, listen. It's a $25 fee. We'll put that on anything. Don't worry.
Dude, someone I think yesterday was mentioning that they wrap up boxes, empty boxes, so that his wife thinks that, oh yeah, he's sending things out to be sold, so that when things come in, so when things, he doesn't say anything, so when things come in, he can just go, yeah, those boxes I was wrapping up.
I got rid of like 5 things this week.
Funny.
Freaking genius.
My tactic is anything I'm selling, I put on the kitchen table so that they see it going out.
Yeah. You got it.
That's fair.
The things that we've
I know.
come to, it's the ingenuity is amazing.
I'm lucky my wife's into this stuff. So like when I'm talking about getting something or bringing it home, we'll have a conversation about it. She's, there was one point where we were, I was picking up, it was one of the first like really big pieces I got, screen use pieces. And it was a Stuart Freeborn piece. And it was one of these things like, well, when are you ever going to get the chance to get something from Stuart Freeborn again? And it was like, well, this is an expensive prop because now I have to marry you.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, obviously everyone's here because of your new product, right? You're coming out with a whole new set, a Dejarik set. It looks incredible so far. I obviously you had your live stream yesterday, Tom, and you brought up a lot of other stuff too. I mean, you had the full size Mudhorn skull.
Yep. So we've got an 18-inch tall, however big that is, Mudhorn skull that hangs on a wall. It's about 4 or 5 inches deep. It's roughly 3/4, sideways, but it's flat on the one side, so it can hang on a wall. It can also stand on a table. It's hyper detailed. It's a perfect match for the Mythosaur skull that we've got that people hang on their wall. Been one of the most popular things that we've sold since opening Regal Robot. Right. That was one of our debut items. It's still hard for us to keep in stock. We've only actually just gotten those Mythosaur skulls up to where they ship out within a couple of days of ordering. Up till now, we've just been trying to keep up with the orders. Sideshow orders, a lot of them, Big Bad Toy Store, etc. And just individual customer orders. So excited to expand that line. We also have the metal look one, the big one that goes in that same kind of area. And then the like 5-inch tall pewter Mythosaur skull from the Armorer's lab in the Covert inside of. By the way, Covert was the name I was looking for. Yes. Like, what do they call that? And as soon as Rob's like, and cut, and I'm like, Covert. Time. But the that little pewter skull, it packs a punch. So Jason, when you came to the studio, I put one of these in your hand.
I did what?
It's like surprisingly heavy. It's so satisfying. Like there's something really, really cool about that thing being cold, heavy metal. And those are now up for sale. And those will be. We've already sold a bunch of them yesterday, and I'm excited about all of that stuff. But to be able to finally talk about the Holochess set is a big deal. Jason inadvertently got a sneak peek at these. I want to say like 5 or 6 months ago. When he had come to pick up maybe his Chewbacca, or he came with Chris to get Chris's Chewbacca, something, and I didn't have the box that Tom can't show on Facebook closed all the way,
Oh no, they were there slamming each other on the chest. I was like, what are you guys doing?
Me and Rob were acting it out, trying to see like, is it like this? This is, and I'll kind of. I put together a bunch of pictures. You guys asked for some shots. There's a lot of stuff people are going to see that no one's seen before. There's some shots of our stuff people haven't seen yet. There's some vintage shots that Phil gave us. that were super helpful in the work we were doing and also just cool to see. So I put a couple of those in there. What we're seeing tonight is going to be cool. What we're seeing tonight is also only the tip of a very big iceberg on these things. We, pardon me, we did a massive photo shoot with them. Each of these product pages, when they go up, are going to have a very large gallery with a lot of photos. We tried to do the pieces justice, and now we're trying to do the quote product justice. With us, product is a weird word. Every one of these is going to be hand cast, hand finished, hand painted, hand packaged into a box, hand boxed into a shipping box, hand labeled. It is very much a small family of people working on this stuff, and it's all made in the USA with a lot of passion and heart for what we do. And just the development of this, people talk about the cost of things. I saw somebody who was kind of like doing I saw a lot of people doing prognosticating on what the price is going to be and all of that. I love seeing that, and it's great. I would love to drop all the information right now. I basically, what we've said is, you know what, we're going to hold off on putting the price out there until everyone has at least seen the whole set. I think they need to have a full understanding of what they're getting, and then we can, tell them what the costs are going to be. We're giving it an extended payment plan. We're going to make it as easy for folks to get as we can. What's interesting is, when I see the prognosticators going on and they're like, and then a couple $100 for licensing fees, and you just kind of like, anybody who's in the game is just like, but then the other thing I think nobody thinks about is like, we've been at work for 8 or 9 months at this point. I think by the time it goes live, we're over 9 months. And it's not an exaggeration to say that there's been 3 of us nearly full time on this, and not just like, your federal minimum wage type people, like 3 top guys in the company working on this thing, plus involving guys like Dennis and John and Phil and all that comes with that, and all the Disney stuff and all the approvals, safety stuff, blah, 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 blah. So, you have to, when you're talking about development on a thing like this, and then you get into the molds and the production development, there is so much that goes on behind all of these things. I think people just don't even get to think about. They might look at a product and go like, well, what's that? $100 worth of resin? Well, yeah, it's $100 worth of resin, and tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars worth of development that you've now got to divide out among every piece you're making, and then your licensing fees and maybe royalties elsewhere and maybe whatever else goes on. So
and 3/4 of a year of somebody's life.
Yeah. It's and I mean, not complaining. I think it's I don't think people necessarily are ever really given a look behind the curtain at what goes on with licensing and how much effort and cost goes into these things. And I think it's there's some of it that's contractual and has to be kind of kept quiet, and I get that. I think where we can share a little bit of that process, just if nothing else, it helps people understand. There's the illusion that if some licensed company A sells an item for $700, that they're making $500 on that product. And really, at the end of the day, if they're making $250, they're probably kind of lucky especially when you're doing things the way we do it. But anyway, I digress. A lot of work, a lot of heart, a lot of passion went into these, and I think whenever you're set to go into the photos, I think we can kind of give folks a little of that journey.
Yeah, we're gonna try to. Oh my God, some horrible echo. Are we? Am I okay for everybody else too?
Yeah, it just suddenly happened.
So weird.
I'm not hearing any.
Is there still echo?
No.
It's Tom.
Is it me? All right, hold on.
It's okay.
No, it's gone. It's gone. I think it's gone. Go ahead, try again, Matt.
Okay. Maybe that's better.
Okay.
All right.
I think we're good.
We're live. So let's see. Let's get it. Yeah, we're getting into the photos. So we've got a bunch of photos where we're going to go through with like history stuff, and we'll kind of talk through the whole deal. And Tom, you let us know what you can show us or what we can talk about and what we can't talk about, and we'll be
I'll kind
be
of
careful here.
try and take lead. So this is a shot probably from 2013, 2014, something like that.
At least, look at you, dude.
Yeah.
We're echoing again.
The beard's a little less gray and the hair's a little longer, but that's just because in COVID
some-
times it's easier to buzz
You
it.
got some product in your hair. You're doing just fine there, Tom.
I do still have that Cereal Monsters shirt, although they've all but faded away and have a lot of paint on them.
I like it.
So that's Phil next to me, Don B's in the middle, John Berg, and Ken Ralston, who also shows up in some of the behind the scenes of the Holochess stuff. This was probably my first visit to Phil's place, and so this is just outside Phil's the Tippett studio there. John is someone that I met in 2012 doing one of the panels for Star Wars Celebration. We were doing a panel on the Star Wars Cantina, and just really clicked, became fast friends, and one of my favorite people in the entire world. He's the type of person that, you know, he and I can get talking, man. But at that show, this just shows you the kind of person that John is. At the show, he was all set to go to dinner with my wife and I, and he gets a call. And, you know, and I'm kind of like bummed. I see the call and I see the look on his face, and I got that look of like, man, he's going to have to cancel. You know, I was really looking forward to seeing him tonight. And he comes over and he's like, I hate to do this. I'm like, here it comes. He goes, can Dennis Murin come? And you just kind of go like, yeah,
Okay.
yes, you know. And that was where I first met Dennis. And, you know, really felt fortunate. And through John met Phil. I had known Don for years. I, you know, really just felt fortunate to get to know these folks. I got to know them through my passion for the Cantina scene and for doing these panels and, you know, basically bothering them with questions all the time about the different monsters they made. And to, you know, wherever it's been possible, I've been trying to loop these guys into the stuff we're doing with Regal.
Right.
And that's something that, you know, if we want to go to like the next picture, you know, here's, this is now Phil and John up in the top in 1977, and then John, Dennis, and Phil in, I believe that's probably 2014, getting ready for Force Awakens, doing the new chess set for Force Awakens. You know, it was amazing to me that they even bothered to do this stop motion in the first place, but that they brought back the same people, that they went to Phil's studio to recreate these, that they then, you know, went through the lengths, and you can kind of go to the next two images here, to go to the archives and, you know, see the chess pieces that John and Phil had given to George Lucas and do photogrammetry on them to capture them in 3 dimensions. You know, if you look at the next shot, I love this pic because you can it's tough to make out in this particular one, but just by Phil's thumb is a little, they had etched into the top of the table, like from John Berg and Phil Tippett. And you know, they did all this 3D capture on this stuff to accurately recreate those figures. And then from other sources, they got laser scans of 2 of the other puppets. And from another source, for the 2 lost characters, they wound up doing a capture on that as well. So all of this great effort, like the way we like to do it, you know, like they went through all of this trouble to match the originals as best they can. And the stuff they did was really outstanding. The next image kind of shows.
Hold on, Tom. Before we go to that image, look at all the stuff in the background. That's a bunch of crazy stuff, dude.
You know, having been there a fair amount of times, that you don't lose that.
Yeah.
You know, you start to think like, oh man, how many days in a row, or how many days you have to go there, or whatever. You're going for work. Nope, it's always freaking cool. You know,
crazy,
like,
man.
I'm not gonna lie. That is a very, very good part of my. And it started before my job, because it was always these other things we were doing with Tom Spina Designs, where we were recreating stuff for you know, commercials and things like that, or when we were doing restoration for the archives, you know, here we are getting to go there and then help preserve this stuff, to be really, really up close and personal with so many of these pieces, to spend hours, days, sometimes weeks and months with certain pieces. You get a sense of these things that you can't get from a photo or a movie shot or a still or behind the scenes at all.
Amazing.
That's crazy. That's
So
crazy.
these were originally created to be Cantina creatures. Is that right,
they
Phil?
were the way Phil and John tell it was they were working on the Cantina scene with Rick Baker's guys. They had a little garage type workshop, like a little industrial space, and on a shelf, Phil had a few little monsters that he was messing around with. One of them was something that he had made just for himself. And, you know, I mean, I see this with the folks that I work with. You can't stop them from making things. You know, if they have a lunch break, they're probably making something. If they stay after work for a little bit, they're probably making something. You know, they're always, hey, can I use the spray booth? Hey, can I come in and just sort of shoot some photos of the thing I'm making? Like, it's the reason I hire people is because if I wasn't paying them, they'd be doing it anyway. You know, that's what I look for. If anybody ever puts in a resume with us, show me that. Show me that commitment. Show me that you are here to make stuff. And that's what I'm going to look for. So that's these guys. You know, they just love making monsters. And so Phil had that guy there. They had also sculpted up a couple of other things that they thought, you know, were like maquettes that maybe could be used for the Cantina or something like that, and wound up you know, being either too complicated, out of budget, just not the look George wanted, whatever. But they had a few of these little maquettes on the shelf. And the story is that George initially wanted to do the scene with actors in costumes, and met that in. And another movie had come out with a very similar chess sequence. I can't think of the name of it right now. Maybe somebody in the comments knows that. But what ended up happening was George saw these little monsters, said, hey, could you do stop motion with those? And of course, you know, Phil and John, yep. Like that was their bread and butter. They love stop motion stuff. So they then got together, sculpted up all the other characters, and within just a couple of weeks put together this scene that they then shot over the course of a couple of days. It's pretty amazing. And it's kind of cool that I think, you know, out of the 10 characters, I think 8 of them are still around and in good condition, and like the whereabouts are known. And, you know, to be able to have lineage to those 8 directly like that is just so cool. And again, you know, with what that was, they could have easily gone to ILM and just said, hey, give us some digital monsters, make them look a little like these, and we're good. You know, but they went for it, and there's a look, there's a feel to stop motion you just don't get. And then for them to go through the effort to make them authentic and accurate is just something I have obviously a lot of respect for. And now I'm, you know, we're benefiting from that.
Yeah.
So yeah, this kind of shows a little bit of what we went through. On the left side is Hunk and Mr. Big, the Mantellian Savrip and Kinton Strider. But Hunk and Mr. Big is a lot easier to say. And that's what Phil's guys called them. That's kind of the pose that their digital was rendered in. And the reason for that is because they were doing molds for silicone. And you needed T-pose like that to allow you to get the armature in and to allow the molds to open and close cleanly and not to have removable parts, because you want to capture everything in that single mold with the armature. You know, it's not like a resin piece where you can take an arm off and glue it on later and patch it.
Right.
And then to the right of that is some of our stuff where we were messing around with the body slime. We eventually turned Hunk around. That's one of those times where we said, you know, in the movie, he technically picks him up by the shoulder and under the crotch like this is. But we thought then the statue would have 2 faces. You know, you would either Do I turn it around to see Hunk? Do I turn it back to see Mr. Big? And we thought, you know what? Here's a chance that we can flip this. And we printed a mini one, and we were messing with it. And someone put it together backwards. And it was just like, hey, that looks great. Let's just do that. But, you know, we had to take these T-posed figures. We had to very carefully, cautiously change them into our poses without warping and distorting any of the detail. And there's some great ZBrush type tricks to do that. But really, there's a lot of handwork that goes into preserving that detail, preserving the authenticity, and then also just creating a great pose and finding for now 10 different figures plus 2 because of the body slam. You know, now 12 different digital sculpts had to be preserved, restored, posed.
Crazy.
And, you know, in some cases, we did a little minor bit of accurizing from, you know, in particular on the 2 that they didn't have the ability to scan the originals. We went through to some great pictures that Phil provided, and we were able to find some little things that they didn't even do for Force Awakens, but that we were like, ooh, look at that in 77. You know, this guy's antenna are really like this, or this guy has a little thing on his back that was missing in the pictures in the Chronicles, but here's a shot that shows it. So yeah, there's our 3 guys. So yeah, Phil and John on top. Those were the guys, top and middle. Those are the guys that did all the sculpting and the animating. And Dennis shot it, you know, and lined it all up, old school. You know, it's such a different thing now to be able to just drop 2 things in the same frame and just move it where you want. You know, could you imagine doing this stuff blindfolded with 2 hands tied behind your back, you know, and like, all right, I think this is going to line up. The math works, you know.
That's crazy.
The thing that I always remember from watching some of the documentaries is Phil talking about the stop motion, and you know, hours of it. And he's like, oh, you know, somebody accidentally hits a light or knocks the table, and you know, just I can feel the cringe, you know, like that.
Yeah, because nowadays you can just go back a couple of frames in the video playback, sync up where the puppet was, and you can keep going. You know, back then a bulb burnt out, and you just lost 3 days worth of work.
Damn. Yeah, that's
amazing.
So that's Dennis and John signing for us. We didn't grab a picture of Phil signing, unfortunately, but yeah, it was an interesting process. We also, you know, people don't think about this. We had to have them sign a bunch of extra plaques because you have 3 signatures on the same plaques. That means there's going to be a bunch of them that get smudged.
Phil just signs over the other 2 names.
Yeah. Well, Phil's got a very, very fun big signature. There's actually one of the plaques that Phil signed it. He was second. So John signed first, then Phil, then Dennis. And when Dennis went to sign, he didn't say anything. He just kept writing. And Phil wrote in Dennis's line, and he just wrote, "Hi, Dennis PT." And so then Dennis signed under that in the little bottom, and then under Phil's thing, he went, "Hi, Phil, Dennis." You know. So Tom, I'm keeping that plaque, by the way. That's the one going with my personal set. Because
you got to get a little frame for that.
Tom, real quick. So is it Dennis that doesn't sign anything ever?
I mean, I don't know that I've seen him do a lot of signings. I felt really, really fortunate we had him on this. You know, one, because it's such a direct connection to that original shoot, but 2, because he's one of the most brilliant special effects filmmakers I want to say in our lifetime, but I mean ever. You know, it's bonkers when you sit back and think about everything he's had a hand in and stuff he's developed. And, you know, I feel really lucky to have, you know, to be able to throw questions his way once in a while, or to, you know, spend a little time here and there and to chat and pick his brain. And, I mean, you know, yeah, legend, absolutely legendary guy. And I don't know if I've seen him with anything in a product before. So you can move where you want, and I mean, throw questions at me and stuff.
Yeah, I got a question for you, Tom.
Steal the podcast.
What are the
Rogue One Spina? You know, I've taken over.
What are those three in the background?
So the two little guys are in the bell jars are the scrimp and bulb sets that Phil
Sure.
Tippett did when he was doing Mad God, and then behind those are just things that John sculpted up. So they're one guy's kind of a little mummy alien, one's kind of a lemur, and the other's a weird crab monster.
Yeah.
But like
okay.
I said, these are guys that make, you know, and
Right.
if you just leave them idle too long, cool little monsters are going to start happening.
That's awesome.
fantastic.
And that's a 1978 pick that Phil pulled for us. And him and John, there's a whole series in this where they go from like serious to smiling to like you know, it's like the film strip in a like the little curtain came over. And this must have been this was when they did the photo shoot for the photos that show up in the Star Wars Chronicles. And it was because Phil had these pictures and because we had access to seeing some of those original props and also having a lot of up close time with the Force Awakens props and stuff at Phil's place. We discovered that the Chronicles pictures are almost all flipped. And so, you know, there have been previous versions of, in particular, the guy with the spear, where he has 3 bones on one arm, but 2 on the other, and it's flipped the wrong way. Or he has 3 bones on both arms because they couldn't figure out, like, wait, why does he, you know, why would he have that? But the photo shoot was really cool, and it must have been at I don't know if it was called Cascade at the time or if this would have been at Clokey. It's because there's a series of these photos. There's some of them that have like Mrs. Butterworth mixed in with the figures and like the Pillsbury Doughboy and like other stop motion stuff that was going on at this studio.
Tom, can I ask, how have these held up over the years?
They're as expected for the material. You know, some of them have held up better than others. For the most part, they are, especially the one in the archives, are, you know, they're not in the most ideal pose. There's actually, it's funny, it looked, I had seen pictures early on and it looks like he's holding Hunk way up over his head. And then there's pictures now where he looks like he's holding him real low.
Yeah.
I thought that had happened, you know, slowly over time, but there was a vintage picture of George Lucas with these things. It's got to be like 79 or something like that. He must have just gotten them. And it's him sitting at his desk and it's already low like that. Like George was messing with him or something. I don't know. But so since they've been stored well and, you know, not handled a lot, they're fragile, but they're not destroyed. You know, they're not falling apart, which is great. And that's the way it is a lot of times with foam latex stuff.
Right.
And some of these are fabricated pieces. So some of them aren't foam latex. They might be, you know, like polyurethane foam with built-up or cotton and latex buildup, well, all of which deteriorate differently. And obviously we deal a lot of that at Tom Spina Designs.com, my other company. If anybody likes old movie props, there's tons of stuff on there that we restore. So we see this stuff and we kind of, it's like, you know what you're looking at. And then some of them have actual hard pieces on them, hard bones. Some of them are harder sculptures and things like that. So those held up really well as well. So it's amazing that they're still around at all. And it's really fortunate for us that they were in such good shape.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So this
moving on, this is it, right?
This is it. This is our stuff. You know, what I wanted to do was give this kind of image, this overview of what that deluxe signature edition set was going to look like.
Right.
There were some people that were a little confused about the offerings, what was going to be a 2-pack, what was going to be, you know, in the 77 sets. So this is the hyper limited, very premium 10-pack deluxe signature edition. Right. We were trying to think of an even longer name, but we couldn't think of one.
Good name.
The idea here is that I wanted to have one place where you had sort of like the pure example of each character. We toyed with the idea of putting like the body slam in here rather than the individual figures. And I'm like, this set needs to be 10 replicas. You know, the 10 different puppets that were made, 8 of which were in A New Hope, 2 of which were supposed to be in A New Hope, but then weren't, and then show up in Solo later. So this comes with the exclusive sort of ready poses, we're calling them, for Hunk and Mr. Big on the bottom left, and then the exclusive creatures, Scrimp and Bulbous, who are seen on the bottom right.
Yeah.
And of course the 3 signatures. So yeah, there's your Bulbous and Scrimp. Scrimp is like the best name out of all. Like you look at him and like, yep, that's Scrimp, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fitting, very fitting.
So Tom, that's one of those names where they kept the one that Phil's guys called this thing, and you know, I'm pretty sure that sounds like a Phil name. Phil sculpted that little guy. So the other names are all very 90s expanded universe names, and that's when a lot of them developed. But so that's that 10-pack, and I think the next slide just shows the plaque, which, you know, there's our 3 guys.
Killer.
Again, amazing. And by the way, does anybody notice what the little stand for the plaque is?
It's like a mini
Holochess table.
Yeah, it's the little Holochess table. We wanted,
nice
initially it was just going to be a little hump, and I was like, let's do something with that.
Yeah.
Good idea.
I love it.
So, Tom, there's been a little bit of confusion, I think, from these black and white photos. So I've seen a number of people ask, are they colorless? Are they going to
Oh, yeah. So that's just because we haven't shared that yet. We'll have a few pictures showing some color on some of these guys a little later. And anybody who saw our video stream from yesterday, I had 4 of the characters out to look at. And yes, they're full color. You know, and even things like Mr. Big has color hair. He has, you know, he has hairs applied to him. He's got a separate belt. He's got a separate leather flap and a little butt flap that's leather. He's got a separate rubber shirt there's a whole story to that shirt.
And we'll see some of that coming up, right?
Yeah. So what was that question there?
The question was, are these bigger or smaller than the X Plus figures?
They are. X Plus was probably ever so slightly, and I mean, like, I'm talking like, you know, a couple of percent, slightly over the actual prop scale.
Okay.
But these are rigidly to the tune of having to redo a bunch of them 5 and 6 times over, accurate to the prop scale. And some of that was down to, you know, me spending time at Phil's and getting to see the original prop. And that was the spark of all of this, really. You know, I loved these things. I always wanted to do them. But when I was at Phil's, we were restoring a puppet at the studio. It was for someone else. It was for a movie director, but it was the work was being done at Phil's studio. And at the same time, Katie Saberser and another fellow whose name escapes me right now were prepping Hunk and Mr. Big for the Solo movie work. And I was like, this is amazing. And seeing the size of them and feeling the heft of these figures, you know, and being able to kind of like, you know, they're like, oh, here, check them out. You know, like, to be able to do that on these things really hooked me. And then they're like, oh, the rest of them are over there. And there's a cabinet, you know, full of these chess pieces. And that was it. I was hooked. I was right up on all of them. I was like, okay, that's this. What's that? That's amazing. And that was what sparked me to, you know, talk to Phil about this. And, you know, I had already known at that point, because this is for Solo, so I already knew the story of how they recreated them. So I knew the lineage was there. It's such a great picture. That's, you know, Phil just looking like he's up to no good, you know, with all his monsters. You know, knowing all that lineage and history behind it, but then to be able to, you know, hear from Phil like, hey, well, you know, we have the digital. Do you want to do something with it? You know, or us asking him really, and getting that okay. I mean, that Rob was at the studio when I got the call on that, and like, it was like, you know, when NASA sends the guy to Mars, the rover to Mars, and it lands, and they're all like, whoa, that was us when we found out we were getting the digital on this stuff, because it was like, we could have done replicas of them. We had great photos. We could have done that. But to be able to pull this off using things that were developed right off the old props, you know, that's us. That's our thing. So.
And Tom, these were the figures that they.
Yes. Yeah. If you flip between them, like, you almost don't even notice them at first.
Was it that it was too cluttered and they pulled them off because
that's the story? Yeah, they said that George came in, they had them all set up, and if you go to the next one, you can actually see them on the table. And that's John prepping the alligator hands guy who got a little bit of a paint job. It looked like right before film, probably because he was a little dark or just wasn't showing up well. But yeah, off in the right hand corner, you have Bulbous and then Scrimp hiding behind Mr. Big there. And they were there, and George just said, that's more than we need. And so they took 2 of them away, and that was those 2. And luckily, Dennis held on to them for years. And when the time came to do Solo, they managed to, there's a picture coming up that's, this is them now. This is those puppets a few years back. And so Phil's guys did the photogrammetry on that. And just below that is our replica of these 2 characters. And there's the only thing that's really missing is a little bit of like wear and tear and some dirt. We wanted to make sure they felt like their 77 look.
Yeah.
All full color, really, really faithful to those originals. We worked very, very hard to capture the details and to get this stuff right and make it feel faithful and accurate. It is a little tough to capture color. I feel like Bulbous has a little more of the beige tone going through in real life. The green overwhelms the camera a little bit, but
right. Yeah, I was gonna say that I think if you're going back and forth through the 2 pictures, if you sort of distinguish sort of the wear and tear, he is a little bit more muted. He's not as pop or vibrant.
One of the things that happens as latex pieces age, they amber. So you see a lot of old latex pieces. There's Yoda pieces that have turned up that, in the movie, he's sort of a minty lime green back in the day. And you see the modern pieces and he looks very kind of warm green. He's got a lot of like little orange undertones. And it's like, well, some of that is the foam latex turning orange underneath, going amber. So some of that beiginess, some of that warmth is coming through from just the wear and tear. When we look at the vintage pictures, Bulbous is actually, very, very green in a lot of them. We tried to stay faithful to that, but still give it some depth and interest. But yeah, I love these 2 guys. I was so, we were trying to find a way to make that signature edition that much more special. And I love the story behind it. I love that they brought them back for Solo and that, Chewie smashes the table and these 2 blip out as like the reason you don't see them anymore in A New Hope. That was a great little Easter egg.
That's funny.
And so that, and then now you've got, this is the exclusive hunk that comes, that poses exclusive to the signature set.
Yeah,
amazing detail.
Thank you. And a lot of this is just us trying to be faithful to what was there and not modify what Phil's folks did. We did make a new hammer. Phil's guys didn't have the original hammer to reference, so they made a new one for Force Awakens, and it's fine, but we wanted to be really, really true to the A New Hope, and so Tony Cipriano at the shop went through and digitally recreated the vintage hammer from old photos that Phil had, and then Mr. Big coming up, the Mantelian Savrip, which, by the way, Mantelian is because it's Ord Mantell, so who knew? And there you can see the hairs on the back of his neck and his sides. He's also got armpit hair, which is on the real puppet. So we put that in there. You can see the separate shirt, the separate belt, the 2 layers in the back, the leather and the rubber flap, the leather on his wrist.
Tom, the leg wrappings are sculpted, right? Sculpted on?
Yes, they are. We wanted to do, we thought about doing them separate, but we thought this was the best way to make sure that they really were spot on in terms of the layers, the wrappings, and the overhangs and stuff like that. The other thing is the more modern movies use string instead of fabric wraps. And that's because that's what John and Phil did in '78 before they gave it to George. But in A New Hope, he has these beige fabric wraps, and we matched them. I drove Tony crazy with these. We would be rotating this model digitally, and it would be like, but if it starts here and it goes here, it doesn't go anywhere. Where are we doing this? And we would just go back and forth like, no, that one comes out here. And
well, it's interesting. It's interesting you say that, Tom, because if you look at the X Plus versions, they have the string.
Yeah, because everybody copied that look from the archives.
Yeah. So this is
Or
how
they
you're
copied
seeing
Force
it.
Awakens, you know, which
So
is
this is
fine.
what you're
Even
getting
his
straight
eyeball,
from.
in Force Awakens, his eyeball is a bit different. He doesn't have the pupil; it's just all red. And we have a really beautiful shot that Phil gave us that showed us a big close up of his eye, and you could see it was red with the black iris. So we put that in there too.
Look at someone won the raffle.
Ken, congratulations! Oh, your wife's going to be so happy.
He's officializing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
These
cool.
guys are smart, man. I love it.
So this is that next shot is just going back to the 77 set. This is the stuff you're getting exclusive to that set. This plus the signatures. They've all got the beautiful black bases. They can all stand independent of the bases as well in case you have a table, or if you say bought one of the Regal Robot Cafe tables that really display these nicely. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
We
Tom,
wanted people to have that option.
And Tom, just so everyone knows,
Yeah.
you will end up seeing all of these in color eventually. Like
Yes.
Tom's getting closer to the release date. You guys will.
We looked at it. We're like, we're almost a month away from the release. Like, we don't want to dump everything out there right now.
Sure.
Like, people have to have something to look forward to. I could say this: a week before they go live, we will put. And this is how we do it with all the big releases. A week before they go live, the product pages will go live with a full gallery, with full details, with pricing, with shipping, all of them.
Great.
So you will have a week to make a very informed decision, and you will have 2 or 3 weeks leading up to that to learn more about what we did here. And we have a lot of cool stuff in store to sort of share a little of our process, and I think I hope people are enjoying seeing a look at these, and I think they'll really enjoy when we get to start showing some of the other photography. Like that shot of Hunk kind of looming over the camera is an indication of some of the pictures we have, and I can't wait for folks to see them.
That's awesome.
So,
so this is the other side of this, right?
Correct. So, much like the Rancor, which you guys remember sold out in about 36 hours.
Yeah.
That 77 sets is a very low number. We did 83 of the Rancors. These sets, we actually toyed with making it an even lower number because it's going to be, relatively high ticket item. But 77 is just such a good number for that we couldn't. We were like, we could do 60, but no, you gotta.
Yeah.
But that being a very low, I mean, how many collectibles are out there that have a number under 3 digits, let alone, under thousands or tens of thousands?
Oh, yeah, sure.
That set being so low, we needed some other way for folks to get a hold of these. And I wanted to do it in a way that would keep that set really unique, keep that set special. And the way that we came up with that, and still make whatever else we were doing limited, but available to folks. And so what we're doing is a limited time rather than an edition number for the 2-packs. So when these come out on May the 4th, as people purchase them, they will have I think it's about 45 days to pick up a set or all of the sets or whatever they want to do. After that point, these are retired. There's these particular sets you're not going to see again, and the editions for each of them will be capped. One other thing I'm going to add in, and we just added this today. I had to clear it with Lucasfilm this morning, and we got the okay. We are going to do numbered plaques with the 2-packs.
Oh, good.
We had heard a few people who had asked about it, and we just said, we hadn't planned on it. We only planned for a plaque with the big set. So each one will just be, it'll be the plaque size like we do with the Jabba maquette and the Gamorrean, that sort of shorter plaque. Mm-hmm. And as a size reference, the plaque that is shown with the big signature set is 7 inches wide. So it's a very big plaque. So that just gives you a sense of the scale of these things.
Wow. So Tom, let me ask you a question about that number, and then because I immediately go to thinking about numbers. So let's say I decide I want to go buy multiple of these 2-packs. I want to get one of each.
Yep.
Will you match the numbers between all of them?
We will not. There will be no requests. I'm sorry. Unfortunately, we don't know how many of each are going to sell. So we can't say you're going to get number 47 of this and then number 47 of that if we didn't even make 47 of that.
Right.
It's also and this is, no offense to everybody, we get a lot of requests for that stuff. And our official answer is, after you have purchased something, you can make a request. And if the number you're requesting is higher than what you would have gotten naturally from your purchase, we will consider one request to do that. Mm-hmm. We can't always promise it. If someone has requested it earlier, we won't do that. But it's really tough to keep track of all of this. And there is one person doing this. So for these guys, we're going to say this is, the number you get will be the number that comes up when you purchase it. If you were the fifth guy to purchase it, you're going to get number 5. The challenge is going to be, there's no real good way to make matched sets on these. And if you want a matched set, then buy the signature set.
Well, and you weren't gonna do it anyway, Tom. So it's, all these sons of bitches can just hang out and they don't have to.
We're trying. I mean, and that's the thing. Look, the reality is you're more likely to get a lower number on something this way than you would get a match set.
Right.
And really, these are individual sets of their own. So, if you wind up getting number 20 of the Chlor Slug versus, number 70 of the Body Slam, well, if that's the number you would have gotten, would you really want to bump all those other ones up? Some people might, but unfortunately, there's just too many moving parts. And it's tough. I mean, they get hammered with these kind of requests, and it's just sort of like, you know what? I don't know how a lot of the other companies do it. We make an effort where we can, but sometimes it's just got to be, look, the number you get is the number you get when you order, and we'll do the best we can.
No, understandable.
So this gives a little sense of scale. This was, it's a naked Mr. Big now that I realize it. This was the before pre-paint Mr. Big and Hunk. And in addition to the black bases that you saw in those other pictures, this one comes with a clear base as well. And that's because we figured folks would want to put this on a table. All of the other figures freestand, but him, because of the way the weight works, he can't stand freely.
This shot right here, I mean, this thing's unbelievable.
Thank you. So, Jason, you got to look at this when you came by the other day, right? So, I mean, what's your feeling on this, having seen it in person?
It was the only place to use the restroom on the way back, so I figured I'd stop there as a convenience. But I thought this piece was not only impressive in detail, but also in scale. And I think the image is sort of hard to convey that. I mean, this guy stands, he's over a foot, approximately. At least from what I can remember. I remember him being.
Yeah, it's right about there. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's quite, the interesting thing is he's quite hefty. He's definitely got a little bit of weight, which I like the base to sort of, like you said, the other ones being standalone, this one, that base sort of helps neutralize that. Yeah. So you're not putting him up and having him tip over. But furthermore, I couldn't believe how detailed it was when I got to sort of touch, the skirt and the shirt and, see the hairs on the back of his neck and the armpits. It's just, I don't know. It's one of those things that almost like you said with the archives, no picture does it justice. You have to see it to really convey that and understand it. But it is really phenomenal. It's next level.
Thank you.
I think I did this to you in a conversation. I was telling these guys. Sorry about that.
No, it's fine.
We're now at a point where
that's great.
No, and I feel this to be true. I had spoken to them about it. I said we're now at a point in collecting where you and your team are literally bringing the archives into our homes and into our collections. Right. And we've never ever had that opportunity before. There's always been things that have been fantastic, that have been, what we call grails and sought afters and favorites. But this is just next level. And it's that attention to detail. And like you said, it's that painstaking attention to detail. It's, the build up, the research and development, the amount of time, the amount of people that get involved to make sure that every little thing goes right. And it's noticeable almost immediately because so many things catch your eye at once. You get overwhelmed. And you get really excited, and it's like, well, look at this, and look at that, and oh my God, and I remember being like, may I, can I touch this, and can I squeeze that? And it's mind blowing. It really is.
Well,
and that's just the employees. and that's how Jason got kicked out.
Jason, and that's how he has the lawsuit against him. Jason, Well, we talked about last night that like Star Wars is like one of the best collecting like licenses that one of the best things you can collect because it was made at the perfect time in history where people were just like slapping things together, taping things up, painting things, throwing them on camera and plastics, and like it's the perfect thing to collect because after that everything started to kind of get to the point where they just 3D print and do all this other stuff. It's like
everything's so crisp, or it's too clean, or it's you have all the found parts in Star Wars.
Right.
You have this. I mean, when you start to go down the list of talent behind the scenes in Star Wars that were not like, Phil Tippett wasn't Phil Tippett at the time.
Right.
Yeah. Dennis Muren wasn't Dennis Muren at the time. All of these guys who would become absolute rock stars in the industry. There were so many of them packed in. Rob Bottin, Rick Baker, just on this side of the pond. Chris Tucker on the other side of the pond, not the actor, the guy who did the Elephant Man. Stay with us. But it's insane to think about. And then, of course, you have the older school guard, guys like Stuart Freeborn, who had done the Man Apes in 2001 and all of this amazing makeup work for like 30 or 40 years prior. It's hard to get your head around like this much talent happening at one time, and Dykstra and all the ILM guys. I mean, you could literally go on forever. But all of that happened at the same time, and it was at the perfect time in terms of the way movies were made. It was at the perfect time in the way effects were done, and they revolutionized some of the effects industry, but they didn't push it so far that it became, sort of what some of it is now. There is still a lot of great practical stuff being done now. There are shops out there that do amazing work that still inspires me every minute of every day.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want to talk badly about it all. But on the whole, I definitely get your feeling where it's just like, it's different now, and that time, it was magical. There's no other way to put it.
Crazy. It's crazy.
And it's also amazing if you think back at the sort of, catalog of movies that we all grew up on. Not to assume everybody watching, but most of us here in this chat.
Right.
There's so many blockbusters and favorites and just things that hit home that you can say, and these guys are all part of that. And it's phenomenal. I sometimes sit and think, what is it like to be them, to know that? Because there's such an intimate relationship with these movies. There's nostalgia, there's sentiment, there's all these things that you connect with, whether you're a child or a teenager, as you grow up. Then you have these things as you're older, the classics, you revisit them to revisit those good times in your life and to have those memories, and to create something that has such intimate or visceral emotional reaction in a human, just through a creative process. That part of it fascinates me. And you're right, you have such a great group of guys that just worked so well together. And it was just like peanut butter and jelly. It just came together so perfect.
Yeah, thank you. It's like right there. Like, how did all of this there's is this some sort of important moment in time? Is this like Back to the Future, where everything had to go through 1955? Like, it's amazing. Like 77 is one of those. And I think you had said something about just that visceral connection, that reaction to this stuff. It's more than nostalgia. It's baked in, like it's in the mold for us. And to me, I am like, I'm an original props guy in addition to, collecting replica stuff. When I collect, I usually want the stuff that was seen on film. And I find even with good replica props, there is a feeling you get from having a one-to-one representation of something you saw either on screen or behind the scenes that made what you saw on screen, that directly connects you to the making of that movie or to the movie itself in a way that toys just don't do it. Other products don't do it. Posters don't do it. Props, one-to-one props, even costumes to a degree, to me, don't hit it the same way. When you have something in your hand and you can look and you'll be like, oh, there's Phil and John messing with these same puppets, like there's this direct connection, and there's something that just fires off in your brain that it's like it lights up that Star Wars pleasure center or wherever that exists in here. And I mean, that's the way it is for me. I love, look, any collector loves that rush of getting a new piece in. And I've been really lucky. We've done a lot of these like commercials and things like that where we've had to recreate aliens and things. I remember when Brian Lewis, who's a guy who sculpted with us for years and still one of my best friends, he had sculpted the goat alien, the Gotal alien from Star Wars. And he sent me a copy of it. And this was one of those times where, you know, sometimes you open up a replica and you're like, oh, yeah, it kind of looks like it. Or like, oh, yeah, that's a good replica. And this was one of those times where it's like I opened the box and I just looked at it. And it's just like, that feels like the thing. Like that feels like the real deal. And that moment really was like, you know, this is what we strive for. Like, I want people to put that Rancor on a shelf, walk out of the room, you know, because you got to do that thing where you put the new prop on the shelf and then you walk out of the room and then walk back in the room and be like, let's see, is that in the right spot? So it's like, I wanted people to look at that or catch it out of the corner of their eye and just, you know, feel that instant connection back to from Star Wars to Jedi and seeing, you know, Phil walking the puppet in the little thing with Dennis shooting it, you know, or to feel that shot where the guy's got his hand in the thing and he does a wide angle, like roar at the camera. Like, to me, that's what I want to capture. That's what I want to feel when I see it. And I'm you know, I'm not going to pat myself on the back too hard here, but the Rancor was one of those ones where I have the Paintmaster that in my office, and I literally catch it out of the corner of my eye sometimes, and just the little cock tilt of his head there, man, like it just kills me. I'm like, oh crap, that's him. Like, that's
I mentioned when we do the unboxing, I said, you know, that slight tilt, that ever so slight, where he's ready to kind of just like, you know,
yeah,
it's amazing. One thing I find,
yeah.
it is. And one thing I find interesting, especially with getting these pieces, the reason why I love acquiring these pieces specifically, it's, you know, you don't get the chance to go into the archives or to see all these details in the movie and, you know, the things that are by design and how they made it work. So when you're getting the prop replica, for example, seeing the drool, how it has the little hole and how it's coming out, you're like, oh, so in addition to enjoying the piece, but you also get this sort of like education of, well, that's how they did it, because you're seeing it replicated. And then like the earring and the detail in the earring, the fact that you're never really going to catch it on screen, right? You're not going to see that on screen. It's a blink and you miss it moment, but you see the detail. And one thing I catch myself doing often with the Rancor specifically, I'll take my phone, right, and I put the flashlight on, and I just kind of run it under his head, and I watch his eyes just foo foo. And I've done it like 10 times already. It just gets me every time.
Thanks. Yeah, it's funny. The drool was one of those things we didn't know how that. Like, you know, you always think about it in the show, and it's just he's got some drool hanging off of him, and then you look, and it's like, oh, there's a bit of fishing line there, and they're running Methicil or whatever down it. I'm like, all right, well, let's do the fishing line, and let's run clear silicone down, like a platinum silicone that won't turn colors over time, and capture that same vibe. You know, we could have made a mold for that, and instead, you know, we had Marcus at the shop. He had cups that said good drool, just okay drool, only if you really need it drool. And he was just sitting there literally dripping them like kind of one by one and putting them on a little stand, and then he'd examine. He'd be like, this goes in this cup. No, this is just in an emergency drool.
That's funny.
Hey, Tom, can you point towards your Star Wars pleasure center? Trying to figure out where that is.
Technically, it's actually downstairs.
It's another
good place to find it is at the shop. I've got the upright, the Star Wars arcade game that One Up did, Arcade One Up. That's a pretty good one for like that instant, like, so many quarters went into that machine over the years, but set me up. I'm good. I'll just be here for a little while, guys. You know, red five getting by.
So real quick, this is a shot that Jason and I found last night that I thought was really interesting. I wanted to add to this whole talk. This is at the ranch, right? The Lucasfilm ranch. Was this actually on George's desk for a while? Do you know? Or
he was in his office for a while.
Okay.
And you know, what they did was when Phil's guys came in to do the photogrammetry, they brought it to the archives so that he could get in there, and you know, they did everything they could do with it. And I mean, it's incredible. It's 4 of the original pieces on a little mock-up table that they made. And, you know, it's funny to see their poses now because, like I said, they started off kind of pretty different. And I really had it in mind that that was just like metal fatigue or something like that.
Yeah.
What's really funny is, you know, the big guy there, his armature was stripped out of the puppet. Phil, like most stop motion guys, if there's a ball and socket armature in a puppet, they almost always remove it from the puppet and then put a wire armature in. And there's other shots where you can see this. He's got slices up the back of his arms, and it's because they carefully pulled the armature out. They put wire in it. And we're going to try and tell a little of the story of that armature, what it was before Star Wars, where it went after Star Wars. And, you know, there's a lot of cool stuff that we discovered along the way here. And, you know, having access to some of this stuff like that armature and things like that, you know, when you're talking about finding the scale for stuff, there's your, you know, instant way to know you got it right when you can have that, you know, metal ball and socket armature to measure off of and be like,
I mean,
because sometimes you look at
it's equivalent to like the skeleton of a human, right? I mean, it's basically
well, it's funny because like, sometimes you look at these puppets and you're like, man, are they, you know, Mr. Big seems big, but then you can like, if you can put it next to the armature, you're like, nope, that's him. Like that's his skeleton. That's, you know, that's as big as he was.
So Tom, let me ask you a detailed question here. Looking at Mr. Big's legs,
yes,
the wrappings on his legs look different than the wrappings that you guys
correct.
sculpted.
Those are the sort of orangey string. They're like twine. And that's what they put on it in 1978, or at least that was the first time it was photographed with that on it. It was 78 when they did that photo shoot. And that's how it is at the archives. That's how it is at the ranch. That's like that orange twine. And that's what they did for the Force Awakens version of this, because they were duplicating what they saw there. But we were all set to do this. We had picked out the right twine. We had the right color, the right thickness, everything. And just when we were getting set to look at like, okay, well, how does this wrap? We realized like, oh, we need a picture from the back or something. So we start looking at the other pictures from 77 and we're like, son of a gun, you know, they're not twine, it's wraps. And that was just back to the drawing board. We had already printed and prototyped him full scale, partially assembled for molding and all of that. And that wound up having to be scrapped completely because we wound up putting him into the sculpt and we needed to then print out the torso and the legs again. And if we were doing that, then just to be sure everything lined up, we redid the arms, went back, remastered that, took away any of the print supports and things like that. We've been very lucky. We've added a bit of print technology to the shop the last few, probably about the last year, much of it with this project in mind, so that we've increased the resolution probably 2 or 3 times from what our current printer was, which was great, you know, and had done things like the Jabba the Hutt maquette and CZ3 and all of this other stuff that we've worked on. But now we had something that has, you know, double that resolution. And these are parts that are coming out that just other than maybe where the supports connected didn't need cleanup, that we weren't disturbing that detail that was on there from Tippett's guys and things like that. And from those original scans and photogrammetry and whatever they had done to recreate these things. So, I mean, it's exciting to incorporate that kind of tech and still be able to, you know, be obsessed about the details enough that when something like that comes up, go like, well, it stinks that we have to print it again. It stinks that we have to go through, you know, we had already gone through some of this effort of doing some assembly and everything, but it would stink more to do the wrong string wraps on the legs and have someone look at A New Hope and go, wait a minute, he doesn't have string. And, you know, to be able to look at the movie in 4K now and go, yeah, there they are. You know, there's weird little, you know, beige wraps made it something we just had to do.
Yeah. Okay.
So I wonder if when they went to go retrieve that piece, they're walking out like, I knew George would break this.
Yeah, it could be. Like, who posed this thing? Well, and that's the challenge with old latex stuff is, you know, it's when it is over time it gets fragile. So, you know, you have these things that maybe get stuck in a bad pose. The Rancor's a little like this. He's all armatured. They basically did, an armature in there so that he could be kind of posed and then put on display. But he's in a real weird pose. And even to us, folks that handle this material all the time, restore all of it, there are times where things can't be moved without destroying it. And that's one of those. You know, he's in a weird pose and you go like, oh, well, you just lean him forward and then lift the head up and move this arm back. And you could do that, but you turn him to dust because the foam is like graham crackers in there. And
Crazy.
That's the sort of thing where you have to say like, oh, if, you know, the armature could take it, but just putting the pressure on the foam between the foam and the armature, the foam would collapse on you. Or if you did get him to move, the joint would collapse. You know, and there's some tricks to soften stuff up. There's some tricks that we've got that sometimes do let us repose stuff. But I would suspect that these guys are, you know, pretty rigid at this point. And, you know, you would be in real danger of doing damage to them if you tried to really repose them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear, like, not to go back to it, I just find it funny because in my mind's eye, like, you know, reading a book, you kind of build up the story. So hearing that, you know, everybody assumed that it just gradually degraded over the years, but the early picture, you know, I could just picture them being like, George, I want to give this to you. It's very fragile. Don't touch it. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Oh, look at this. Oh, ooh. You know, and then do one of those.
Nobody saw that, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Just like paranoid, but
they're still cool.
It's amazing.
It's a funky pose. Actually, what's neat is it's tough to tell from this image, but the way it's posed right now is he's got hunked down and Mr. Big's head is looking out of his own armpit at the little crouch guy in the back. And it really is, it's like, you know, he's in the middle of this big move, but he's like, what are you up to? You know, giving the look a little like, oh gosh, when Superman catches the Flash out of the corner of his eye in, is that Justice League? Is that Batman versus Superman? I think it's Justice League. I don't know. I'm better with Marvel. Sorry.
No, who cares?
Right. Sorry. Podcast. Star Wars.
But yeah, so real quick.
Yeah.
Moving along. This is the one you actually make currently, right? You make this.
Yeah, so this is it's a printed top cafe table, beautiful gloss top on it. And we had one in the office, so we pulled it out for the video we did yesterday. And we actually used one of them for when we did our photo shoot of the figures as well. So we have them on black and on their bases, and then we took photos of them on the table. And this is technically scaled slightly bigger than the real table. Right. And it actually works really well with the figures at puppet scale. That's cool. It's maybe slightly crowded, a little more crowded than the actual, prop table might look. Some of that might also be just that it doesn't have the big ring around it, that big donut. But the puppet scale figures look great on this thing. And I'm not just saying that to sell tables. I'm saying on, like, this is, I highly recommend it.
One of the questions I wanted to ask you, Tom, was, I know there's the puppet size, right? Mm-hmm. But when they were projected on the table, were they scaled at all?
So I don't know.
That's a good question.
I don't know the specific scaling there. And in talking to folks, they've not been able to kind of give us one. And a lot of that stuff, back then, there was a bit of that was done by feel. And what I would just say is, on the table, to me, they look a fair bit smaller than they do as puppets. Mm-hmm. My guess is, if I had a guess, so I would say the Galaxy's Edge set is too small, but that's a guess. This is my feeling on it, so I don't take this as gospel. But if I had a guess, it's somewhere between the puppet scale and the Galaxy's Edge set. Yeah. It feels like those are maybe half scale to the puppets, or maybe even a little smaller. It's tough. Anybody who's messed with scaled stuff, you get a half scale head. To me, it always looks so tiny, and you're like, wait, that's not half scale until you start measuring things.
I think people need to realize that what they're looking at screen may be a different size than the actual prop. Used because of that potential scaling.
I mean, that's the way it is all the time. The Rebel Blockade Runner was a bigger model than Star Destroyer. And that's the first thing you see is the tiny blockade runner being chased by the giant Star Destroyer. Meanwhile, one of them was almost 6 feet long and the other was 3 feet long, which is just, movie magic.
Well, and Tom, Jason and I were talking about this the other day. I think you guys need, in some of your photos, your marketing photos, I think you need to do the Chewie bust with these around them.
Yeah.
because that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. I love that. It's funny. We were working on about another small batch of those Chewy busts right now. It'll probably be about 6 or 8 weeks before we have some of those to show. But once we have some together, it'd be neat to set one of those up on the photo table and then just sprinkle these guys all around them.
Yeah, that'd be so cool. That would look awesome. Okay, and here's some more.
Yeah, so these are some of the other 2-packs. These are pre-production, work in progress photos. We have finished photos of all of them. These are all we're able to share right now. So this is one of the 2-packs. We call this the apostrophe 2-pack because it's the Kalor Slug and Nagak, which are the only the two that have superfluous apostrophes. Again, just the worm guy is really substantial. If you stretch him out, he's like 15 or 16 inches long.
Wow.
And the other guy's really complicated. We've got a way of production for him and the guy with the spear that actually captures some stuff that you wouldn't with some of the traditional approaches. So we're excited about that. And then the next slide is my favorite right now. As much as I love Hunk and Mr. Big, that Violet, aka Grimtosh, aka Molitor, I absolutely love that ant elephant guy. And we've got this cool pose, that fist on the ground pose that just to me has so much feel and vibe to it.
I've seen this thing in color and it's fantastic.
The color and detail is phenomenal.
It is beautiful.
I love the color tones and the way they came together on it. And again, that's down, like, we're just recreating what they did too. Like, their color choices were so good. Every one of these guys has his own color palette, but they all feel cohesive. And some of that is down to, Phil loves to put brown on things after the fact.
Right.
And like the guy in the front, that foreground guy, that the Crouch is what Phil's guys call him. I think Hujix is his real name. He's one of those ones where he looks like he's just kind of pastel blue and green, but it really is down to you have to dirty him up on top of that. And then it's like we did it, and we're like, he's not quite there. And then you put the dirt pass, and it's like, oh, there it is,
Wow.
And another thing
and the next shot just shows what the bases look like again, in case anybody didn't get a look. I don't know if you noticed in that shot from of Phil and John with the mustaches from the 70s. All of the figures wound up on these little black bases, except for the 4 that were given to George. And so, ours are a little taller, a little heftier, just for a little more substance to them. But yeah, there's the shot. But we wanted to evoke that style. It's just below that. We wanted to give a little sense of that, like satin finish, the black wood, and just a little of that feel. And mostly that's because that's how I always thought of them from the Chronicles. I love putting things, there's a little bit of lift, a little like kind of getting a little air underneath them, a little bit of a pedestal for each. And to have that and the option to take them off and put them on a table. Right. They're not connected here other than, again, the body slam, which just physically needs it. And even there, to have the option for the clear base. Like, we're trying to put a lot of thought into not just what we're making, but how people want to display them and give them some options too. So the interesting thing is when you see these guys laid out, usually they're on like a 48-inch wide table when we did the wide shot with the plaque and everything. So like, you need a bit of shelf space if you're getting the 10-pack. Like there's a bunch of them.
That's so cool.
Some of these pieces are a lot bigger than they again, the perception, the worm and the purple ant, elephant guy. Like I remember, I assumed, this will fit my hand, and he was quite cumbersome. And it's amazing how large some of them are, because they look small in images, but the perception, and I think they're going to display amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's always tough to get that across with everything we do. You see a lot of, if you go to the decor section of our site, you'll notice almost every product has a shot in someone's hands. You know, it's either someone's reaching in with a plaque or someone's holding a magnet. Like we want to, it's like Maria's hands at the shop became our sideshow apple or something like that. Somebody was saying we need like a Regal Robot soda can to put in the shots with some of these things to give a sense of scale. We'll see. Maybe we'll come up with something someday.
That's awesome.
That's actually not a bad idea. And just to note that the John and Phil mustache is not included in the set.
That's correct. You have to grow that yourself.
Sadly.
We can't guarantee if the bell bottoms are included as well. But yeah, it was a last little look at
May the 4th, right?
Yep, May the 4th seemed like a good day for it.
Great day.
Just like 77 seemed like a good number for him, you know.
It's fantastic.
Now this as we get ready to close, this is a great image only because it sort of gets a little bit closer to, you know, when you had asked me, trying to convey that. This gives you a little bit of a better idea on the shirt, you know, the sort of cuffs around the shirt, even the eye, the red with the black pupil. It's just all the pit and pock marks on the gentleman being body slammed. It's just it's something else. It really is.
Thank you. Yeah.
Wow.
A lot of love went into those pock marks and his little leather wrist strap and, you know, all this other stuff. It's just, I'm always kind of, look, it's no secret. I get very excited about the stuff we're doing. It has been so hard not to share these over the last few months, especially like the last 2 months where they really came together and we were painting them and we were, you know, putting the finishing touches on the last few. And it's just, you know, we're taking these photos and like, like to take you get these beautiful shots like this one and you're just like, when can I share this with someone? Like, I just want to like immediately tweet it, you know?
This piece is amazing. It really is.
Thank
I mean,
you.
the whole set's incredible. When I saw this, I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. It really is amazing.
It's funny. Tony Cipriano and Gordon Tarpley did the digital on all of these guys. Names that are probably familiar to anybody that's been buying our stuff. But Tony had a great thing on this post. So I gave him the basics of what we were looking for on this. And Rob and I would go through and he'd kind of go like, you know, do you want the head this way or this way? And, you know, just some broad stuff. But Tony did this. And when we had that moment where we flipped Hunk around, Tony did that digitally and then he started spinning it. And so he's an ex Disney animator. And he's like, this isn't an in-between. This is a key pose. This is a keyframe right here from every angle. And as he's rotating, we're like, yes, that's it. You know, and it's that kind of, you know, capturing a moment and putting it out there. So much of what we do is pretty static. We still can get a lot of character in, like, you know, like we were saying, Jason was saying with the Rancor, with the head tilt and things like that. This is one where we got to have some fun and be overtly posed, overtly dynamic. And it's a weird place for us because it's not where we normally play, but man, it's a lot of fun when we can.
Yeah, you can see the dynamic in there and it's fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. What you can't see very well is his armpit hair, but I assure you it's there. I think it got fuzzed out when we were doing the photo edit, but that was one of those things.
He does have like red eyes and
yep.
It's just so cool. The hair and stuff.
And everything. A little pink in the nostrils. You know, and the hairs are glued on just a few hairs at a time, so they look like they're growing out because you can't punch resin. But
so cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, man, I think you got another home run on your hands, so that's cool. That's awesome, man. And
Thanks.
like Jason said, we really appreciate Tom, just you kind of bringing the archives into our homes. Like, that's pretty nuts. And anybody that's out there that, I mean, you guys are all seeing this. If you can do it, jump on it. These are going to obviously come out May 4th. Don't miss it, because I'm guessing a lot of you missed the Rancor, and that probably doesn't sit very well with you. And so you might not want to miss this. That's just putting that out.
Yeah, you don't want to end up paying paying double.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, don't wait till the Rancor goes on eBay for $6,000.
Yeah.
You know
But,
what? Rob would be real mad at me if I didn't say this too. We have an email list. It's right on our website. You know, if you want to be alerted on May the 4th when this is going to go live, we'll be sending out an email ahead of time, and it'll say, you know, today at noon or today at whatever time. It'll probably be noon Eastern. You know, that's your chance. The way to hear about that stuff, go to regalrobot.com, scroll to the bottom of the homepage, and there's a place to sign up for the mailing list. We don't spam you. We're not going to send a lot of stuff you don't want. You guys get the email list. It's always good stuff. Yep. And that's the way to be in the know. That's the way to make sure you're not missing out on this stuff. And those Rancors, I thought they were going to last a couple of weeks. They didn't even last a couple of days. I was so proud of that in a way. Like I genuinely feel bad for all the folks that wrote us afterwards, but so happy for the folks that did get to bring those home, and I'm so excited. Rob's not mad. I just saw the thing. That's because I did it. Otherwise, I was going to kick my butt tomorrow.
Tom, real quick, I know that most people know this, but for the few that don't, or for few that may have concerns and the price gets posted out there and all the speculation, just a quick rehash of the fact that they can, paste this over quite a bit of time. It sort of allows that to be a little bit more.
Exactly. And there's sort of two factors to price on stuff, or a few. There's size of the edition definitely has an impact. That just speaks to the scarcity of that particular product, and that gets reflected. And sometimes it's the scarcity that drives the price. In our case, usually it's the price that we have to do to make it work that then tells us, okay, if that's got to be the price, then we're only doing 77 of these, versus some of the maquettes where it's like, okay, we can do 250 of this because that's a more reasonable price point, or it's a more achievable sort of price point. So sometimes, the price is driven one way or the other. For us, it's usually price comes out just as a factor of practicality and the cost of doing this stuff. And then from there, we set the edition size to balance that out.
Right.
And then it's about, how do you make it achievable for people? We only just introduced our payment plan it was last summer. It's really, really recent. And again, very small crew, very small office team. Some of that is helping, trying to keep the costs in check by not having tons of people working the office all the time. And they've got to be able to manage this stuff. And what we found is, we started with 3-month plans. So, when CZ3 went up, it was a 3-month plan. When Java went up, it was a 3-month plan. The Gamorrean Guard maquette, etc. We've now extended a lot of those to 4 and 5 month plans. And we've done that as we've worked out our systems in-house, and we figured out ways to do that more effectively. And I love, pardon me as I grab a quick drink of water. I get choked up talking about payment plans. I believe the Gamorrean fighter is now down to like $100 a month or something like that. Okay. And we've worked it out where we can, do these more extended plans without adding a ton of administrative work. And now we're starting to roll out those longer plans on things. So these are going to be, it's a 7-month, 8 payment plan. You put 1 deposit down, you then make even payments for the next 7 months. And it's going to be like that for the 2-packs as well as the big set. So even the 2-packs, you're going to have extremely reasonable plans, things that really you're not going to feel month to month. Yeah. And it'll be a chance for people to bring, if they can't get that set, whether they don't get it soon enough or they just, it's out of their budget, there's an opportunity for them to bring either, the original Trilogy 8 in the form of those 2-packs home in some way, or a few of their favorite characters. Maybe there's somebody who got the X Plus set but want the other 6.
Well, and that's
an option for them.
That's the nice thing about this whole deal you got going on, is that there is a limited set that you can only get if you're gonna, whatever the cost is, and it's gonna go away. But there's also a timed edition where it's like, it's very reasonable, and you can still get a piece of it, right? You can still get something.
And if people reach out after 45 days and say, "Oh, I missed out," you know, that's when we have to like, well, we're sorry, but we gave you a really long window to order this.
Right.
You know, this wasn't a day and a half. So, you know, that's the kind of thing. I'd also just say, you know, even on those 2-packs, order early, get those lower numbers if you can. Make sure you get yours locked in. We actually had someone that, you know, we've had a few times where people thought they ordered something because they order everything we get and realized after they didn't, and then they missed out on an edition. And, you know, I just feel terrible, but it's like, it's over though. I can't do it.
Yeah.
You know, we try and guard those editions really closely, and, you know, we don't want to water things down after the fact. So, don't miss the chance. Definitely jump on this stuff. And that again is salesmanship.
Yeah, no, and I think with the payment plans, it does make it attainable.
Yeah, and again, these aren't statues, these aren't figures, these aren't toys. These are prop replicas. These are built to a standard that is very different from a lot of other stuff. And, you know, people are going to see that over the next few weeks as we release more information about them, as we release more photos, and eventually the pricing. People will see everything that went into this, and hopefully will absorb the excitement and sort of take that in that we have for it. And
Tom, you know, something else that I think people need to really appreciate is you guys can claim something. I think some of these other people that are out there, other companies that do stuff, some can't, some can. I think you guys can do this very well. You can claim lineage on some of these products.
Yeah.
On most of these products, not a lot of other people can do that. And that's a huge deal. And I think that's such a big thing to be able to say, is that these are coming from something in the movies, something that was on the actual movie that we all love, right? Yeah. That's amazing. It really is.
It's really cool. And I love, you know, there's times for me as a collector that does a lot of screen use stuff, the replica stuff that appeals to me is always a lineage thing.
Right.
You know, there's the occasional rare, like hand sculpt that someone did that was just so fun or faithful or whatever. Something about it grabs me. But for the most part, if I'm gonna buy a replica, I want something that came out of the original mold, or I want something that is a casting, or was scanned off a prop, or, you know, is otherwise linked back to the archives or Lucasfilm, or, you know, people that worked on the movie worked on it. That's another form of lineage. You know, the same guy who sculpted it for the movie sculpted it for us, that kind of thing. I appreciate you picking up on that. That's something we put a lot of effort into, and it's nice that folks notice.
Well, it's not like you're not going to buy a bunch of Marvel or DC stuff and they're going to be like, it has lineage like that. No one says, like, Star Wars can claim that. Right.
Yeah.
And, it's just so it makes what you collect so much more special, I think. And so, here's a quick question. Will you announce the final edition sizes once the buying period is over?
I think we will. You know, we haven't. We were kind of talking about. That's a great comment about Steve, by the way.
He's like,
somebody needs to put a graphic over his head. I'm like,
over my head. You could put it on my head. There's a lot of room.
Oh,
I know. Oh, so sad.
You know, Rob and I were talking about that this morning. I think we're going to play that a little bit by ear. But, you know, I think because one of the things we said was like, oh, well, what if one of them comes up real low? Like, what if the worm guy set, there's only like 20 of them that people bought, which could happen. And we're totally, like, we're prepared for that. That's fine. The trick with that would be like, we're going to tell these people, he's like, that would be a great selling point. I'm like, yeah, but we'd be announcing it after they were sold, you know?
Yeah, right.
So, it'd be neat to me. I kind of think we'll probably do it, but we're going to have to play it by ear. And there's also some stuff where, I think, you know, people will probably figure a lot of this stuff out on their own. You know, you'll probably get a lot of fans who are sharing the numbers they got as they start getting them.
Sure.
And, you know, I've seen them do that with other editions of things in the past where people have gotten cool sideshow statues or whatever. And they, you know, where they don't necessarily announce the edition, or they cap it at some point. And they're like, oh, well, I got, you know, this number. Oh, I got that number. And, you know, everybody just tries to figure out who got the highest.
Yeah, right. That's
but
cool.
I think we'll probably announce it. I think it'd be neat to share that.
That's cool. Well, guys, we don't want to take too much of Tom's time. We don't want to take too much of everyone else's time. I know you guys waste your lives watching us and other things like this. So we really appreciate you guys hanging out in the chat, everyone kind of getting to see just the amazing stuff that Regal Robot's coming out with currently. And I know you guys have a lot more in store, Tom, ahead.
Yeah.
And that's exciting for all of us. We're really always pumped to see what you guys come out with. So
thank you, man. Yeah, I mean, the way to think about it is 9 months ago, we were working on this and we've only just started talking about it. Just think what we'll be talking about 9 months from now.
I know, it's crazy.
Which sounds like I'm pregnant, but
it's terrifying.
That's not,
It's terrifying.
I don't know. That box behind you looked a little bit pregnant on the show.
Yes. Yeah, you never know what's going in. Tom can't share on Facebook box.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, guys, if you have any other questions, I'm sure, Tom, you're going to be putting up posts and everything like that throughout the month that they can comment on and question and all that kind of stuff.
Yep. Follow us. We're at Regal Robot on all sorts of social, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, etc. Give us a follow there and definitely sign up for that newsletter. This is not salesmanship. This is how you don't miss out on this stuff. If you're seeing anything you like in what we're doing, and if you say like, ooh, they're working on new things, I wonder what that is. That's how you find out. Social is kind of hit or miss. That email list gets right into your inbox and it's just, that direct feed of, hey, by the way, we just did this,
Yeah. And Tom, thanks again also for giving us your time and giving us a special look at this stuff. It was greatly appreciated. And I know the community appreciates you kind of working through it and talking through more of it. So
I'm so honored to have been here. I thank you all for your time and for each of you giving so many of our pieces a good home. That means a lot to me.
Absolutely.
I love seeing them in the background. I love seeing you guys talk about them. We're definitely keeping an eye. No, I'm kidding. We love seeing that stuff. And it's just, anybody who does follow us on social notices, there's a ton of customer picks there. We just love seeing our stuff in people's collections. So please keep those picks coming. It's amazing. And thank you guys for sharing so much of what we do. It means the world to us.
Awesome.
Fantastic always.
All right, guys. Thank you. And look out for more at Regal Robot and their Facebook page. Oh. And what's up?
Yeah, real quick. Our next show is going to be group therapy. And that's going to be a special version of group therapy, because it's going to happen on Saturday morning, noon Eastern time, and we're going to have a bunch of our European friends join us on the live stream.
And we will be talking more about this, I'm sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Topic, so. All right, guys. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Peace out.
Bye.